So you see the importance immediately of sticking on these cases. The ACLJ, I just want you to know, has filed in that case in Virginia. So we were at the Supreme Court. We got in, it was yesterday, and there's the filing from the Americans for Law and Justice. Then the court, remember the court, we said the Chief Justice had asked for briefing. That was a good sign that they were taking something seriously to put in some kind of action. Obviously, they weren't going to hear everything on the merits. So they put that stay in place. Governor Youngkin can move forward in Virginia and remove the 1,600 non-citizens that were identified through a program there off the voter rolls. So there's no confusion. And again, you're protecting your own citizens, as he's doing, and the country from voter fraud. We have a similar situation in Pennsylvania. We'll give you more information on that. We are looking at filing there as well that would prevent illegal aliens from being able to vote. So that's a situation, again, where people who are non-citizens and should not be here. So you got a double there, which was even different than Virginia. So when we launched that election hotline, of course, at aclj.org/election hotline, if you have any questions, if you feel like you've got a legal issue, and it should be you, or if it's you heard it from somebody and they think they have it, you need to have them contact. That's the quickest way. So we can talk directly to the person who feels like they had an issue. Go to aclj.org/election hotline. The important part of what we're doing right now is taking the resources, launching this matching challenge early for, again, election integrity, and again, to make sure that when we have that final vote, that we are confident as Americans that there was a fair and free election with no fraud, that was any type of the fraud that could actually have turned the election one way or another. And your support matters, because we have to be ready for any and every case that comes in. So we have a matching challenge right now. Double your impact at aclj.org. Whatever you donate, going directly to making sure between now and the election day on Tuesday, on election day, and remember, as I've said, and now it's being said by a lot of people, which is interesting, but I told you about it 2-3 weeks ago, was that I think the most dangerous time in America for this election is going to be if Donald Trump is declared the winner of an election. That's an if, because polls are tight, and actually swearing him in January and taking the oath. We know there's members of Congress. We know that they want to try and prevent him from being the next president, and they see the election as just one of the hurdles, and they've already got plans. So all those resources, we have to be ready to fight. Like, election day could be over after next week. You might even like the outcome. You might be really excited, but we have to be ready at the ACLJ as someone to protect your vote and who gets elected to really fight. And we're talking about more legal battles. We'll get there when we get there. Right now, you make sure you vote. And maybe you're like me. When you find out and people call you names like garbage, you're inclined to maybe have more people go vote and get more active, because you realize the people using dangerous and violent language are the left. And that's exactly what Joe Biden has done. And they are using him, I think, old Joe Biden, to put out these statements to test him, to basically see how far can we go in the rhetoric. We're calling him Hitler. So if you're a follower of Hitler, you're part of the regime too. Shouldn't you be also a target? Aren't you a fair target? You're just as vile, right? If you're at the rallies. So I want you to listen to President Biden. And then after a few hours, not 5 minutes, but a few hours, what they tried to put out on his Twitter account, in a statement to try and make good on it. Take a listen.
And just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization of seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American.
All right. To me, there's no way we are hearing that wrong. That's what the White House said. There are people, of course, who came out and said, of course, I don't agree with the fact that he said that all the Trump supporters are garbage. But we have a timeline here, and you also got to hear it for yourself. And he was not just talking about the comedian, one. They decided to make an issue of the comedian and not be clear that all comedians say offensive things about lots of people, and that's why they're comedians. So the fact that they took a situation that may not have looked great for the Trump campaign, honestly, and they made it so damaging, Will, for the left. You've got Kamala Harris less than a week before an election having to come out and apologize for Joe Biden.
That's right. So this call was with Voto Latino, and it was a specific Zoom call to outreach to the Latin community. And Biden's call started at 6:53 p.m. He tweeted out this at 8:31 p.m. Earlier today, I referred to the hateful rhetoric about Puerto Rico spewed by Trump's supporter at his Madison Square Garden rally as garbage, which is the only word I can think of to describe it. His demonization of Latinos is unconscionable. That's all I meant to say. The comments at that rally don't reflect who we are as a nation. So they're trying to play back. So that's about 90 minutes after. This comment was right up at the beginning of it. The White House simultaneously released a transcript of the call in which people are now calling apostrophe gate because they added an apostrophe after, in the word supporters, they put the apostrophe after the R. So trying to say that it is singular possessive talking about Tony Hinchcliffe. This is like a Soviet-style propaganda campaign run by the White House because even CNN was like, okay, you watch the clip. There is no way that what we just saw was a hard stop. He wasn't talking about one person.
Well, and actually, the person he's referring to, if you really listen to the statement, and we can play it again, but listen for the second time through, is he says it over and over again, his rally. He's talking about Trump. A speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating, island of garbage. And then he goes back through and says, he's talking about his home. Then he says, back to his supporters.
Right.
His demonization. Okay, how many times he literally, through stuttering it, said 3 times. The only his in that statement was Donald Trump. So the only supporters are voters of Donald Trump or people who are planning to vote for Donald Trump. They may have tried to find a creative way to say he didn't say what he actually said. But by the time they actually put that out, other people were already condemning him. I mean, the thing is, Will, you would hope, and Logan, the fact that you could get ahead of this in seconds if you thought this was real. If you had heard that the way everyone else heard it, the statement should have been real time.
Well, it completely took the wind out of the sails of what was a moment where they were seizing on. When they were seizing on Tony Hinchcliffe, making comments that were like incendiary that people thought were too far. Even President Trump last night said it was too far. Like, I'm a fan of his, but I do think it's odd sometimes to put these comedians in these situations. You're taking a risk, and sometimes that risk doesn't pay off. However, all of that, maybe you'd say, good political will that came from his statement, gone for the Democrats immediately after this statement, because instead of saying, hey, we're making a joke about a percentage or about Puerto Rico in general, which, again, you could find that joke offensive.
It also wasn't about Puerto Ricans.
Yeah, about Puerto Rico. You're now saying half of the country is garbage, and even Caitlin Collins walked that back. Yeah. You heard her immediately saying this isn't what he said, because the Biden, administration started putting out, really, like we said, the damage control. But I think we have a clip. This is Caitlin Collins on CNN. We're not talking about Fox News. This is CNN.
When the White House is trying to say that what President Biden was saying, they're putting an apostrophe there in supporters, saying it's the singular, I guess referring to the comedian, that supporters comments. I mean, it's hard to really look at that when you can listen to it for yourself.
She was on with Josh Shapiro, who then later on even went on to
Governor of Pennsylvania
to say, yeah, I would never say that about people. I would never say that about half the country. And this is ridiculous.
And I do think as well, there's another element to this timeline that is damaging for Harris, because not only did it take the wind out of the Democrats' sails about this, look how bad they are, the comedian called Puerto Rico garbage, and now they can't really use that effectively anymore. No, but here's the odd timeline. Joe Biden had this call with supporters at 6:53 p.m. when it started. Harris was taking the stage at 7:15, 18 minutes later, to give what they've been billing as the closing message, the biggest speech of her lifetime, on the ellipse with the White House in the background. So not only did it take the wind out of the argument that look how bad they are with Tony Hinchcliffe, on social media, I saw maybe one clip of Kamala Harris from her speech that was supposed to be billed the biggest thing ever, 75,000 bureaucrats attending because, it's easy to get that crowd that large when you're a Democrat in D.C. But no one is sharing her speech. Everyone is talking about
I don't know if it's made him.
What the sitting president
I think I
said.
saw one picture of it.
I didn't even know it happened. I didn't know it happened until you guys brought that up, because I was so focused on seeing the clips going back and forth from CNN and from President Biden. I saw nothing about this rally. When you told me he was doing it during a rally, I didn't even realize this was that rally, that this was the big one. I thought, I was like, okay, well, she's doing lots of events. I didn't realize he was interrupting this big moment. That, again, I was at a film screening.
This was her Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, I was at a film screening last night for the Bonhoeffer film and thought, okay, I'll check after. And when I checked, all of social media was just the garbage line. That's all I saw over and over and over again.